special guest speaker too. So, without further ado, we'll have Steve kick it off.
Hi there. Okay. My name is Steve Gray. I am the vicar of the Northwood Washington Parish. I'm here on an internship, and it is so special to be a part of this 150th anniversary with everybody from the Northwood Evangelical Lutheran Church. And I want to thank everybody for coming out today to make this such a day of joy and celebration. Let us pray together. Good and gracious God, thank you for this gathering of your people. Give us joy as we celebrate with the gift of music and the sharing of stories. Bless this time as old friends and new share fellowship as your church together. Fill this space now with warmth, laughter, and love. In your holy name we pray. Amen. For our first hymn is number 886, Over 1,000 Tongues. Are we standing, Wade? What do you think? Are we standing? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, well, I wasn't told about a big history until now. Okay, so I got my talk. I'm going to talk fast. It's going to be a little too long, so the rest of you will have to cut your speeches short. So, I have served in 6 parishes and multiple churches. I've served in 7 interims and multiple churches, so I've been on a lot of churches. And it's true, as you expect me to say, just beautiful people wherever you go, just beautiful people. And I just wish I could live it all over again and enjoy those people even more and show love more and receive love more and and so on and so on. But this church was the most like mine at home. When I came here, it was like coming from my home in Barnville, Wisconsin, probably the same Norwegian roots and so on. The way I communicate this to you is Gladys Godock, those of you who know Gladys Godock, could have been my grandmother's sister. They were two peas in a pod. That, you know, oh, hi, Grandma. And so it was just that, anyway, every church and denomination, every town and church has a different feel and everything, and the field, the whole field of milieu, is that the word, was where I come from in southern Wisconsin. This church was begun in I got a little of this here. Oh, when I was here, we had our 125th anniversary, so I did a lot of reading of history, and I was a recipient, and history of the church, history of the town, and the two went together, the same leaders and so on. Quite a story, an inspirational story. And in 1874, this church was begun in the sense of a lot of churches. Churches were 18 miles apart. You women in the ladies' age, when you want to go to the ladies' age, you walk 18 miles, and men with other women, and walk 18 miles back, and so on. So they broke off into a little bit more churches over the years. But 1874, and so, get a load of this, in 1935, they were celebrating their 60th anniversary. You started in 1874, and in 1935, you're celebrating your 60th anniversary already. Isn't that something? And in those years, and the years since, just inspirational stuff, just wonderful leaders and the pastors and lay area and the parishioners and their commitment to God, their commitment to Christianity. It's just inspiring, just wonderful work for God Almighty has gone on in this town, in this area, and other churches around, and right in this spot right here for 150 years. Just inspirational work for God. For example, of all the churches I've served and known in my lifetime, this one by far, I can't think of a church that even comes near the mission emphasis of this church. I read one of these history books, and they supported individual, specific missionaries all over the world, from Alaska to Japan and South America and Madagascar and so on. Specific ones, some full salary. Everything needed for a whole year, and food and equipment and everything was supported by this church. We've gone through the book and here's a group of 40 people, here's a group of 30 people, here's a group of 20 people, and you read what was their main reason for being? Missions. Kids 4 years old to 16 years old. What was their mission? Missions. Missionary in Madagascar. It just goes on and on. You know, more than you can conceive. It was just really great. And then the other strong part of this church is music. I was here last week looking for things, running around, and I learned that every other closet and every other file cabinet is full of music. And just music since the beginning, you know. This is because of all the beautiful music you've had here. And while I was here, Brian Jodak, Bob Marstoon, and Helen Ostison were the leaders. There were many other leaders before them, of course, and leaders since them. But so this church was dedicated in 1952. Stop and think of the NELC building and tell me another church like it in a rural area within 100 miles. This is special. There's a church that just like it over in the Bemidji, and so on. Okay, going on now. Things that I can remember. I got to go fast. So now I would like to tell you about this fantastic education program that we had while I was here, but that'd be a lie. So I won't go into that. Okay. When I first came here, New Orleans, I got to go with the kids to New Orleans, pre-Katrina, and then twice after Katrina. Quilters. We had the quilters. That was, and I think it all started with Jeff and Diane Nelson giving popular music, giving Kurzweil, both in this church and their home church in Washington. So we had, suddenly we had this beautiful organ system that cost thousands of dollars years ago. and the Luther League raised $6,000 to have the pipe organ and so on. So now where am I? Okay, the Kurzweil's given to us. So people got inspired, and we had a guitar player. I don't want to name names. I'd like to, but I'll forget somebody. But we got a guitar player, a drum player, in the church as well, and we had singers and maybe a couple other, another guitar, I believe, and so on, and they would lead services sometimes. That was our contemporary, even though they were mostly over 60 years old, that was our contemporary worship group. And they would both sing the old songs about Come to Heaven Jesus in a more spirited, upbeat way, and then they would tackle late contemporary music and make it fun and so on. They would lead services, or they would take part in services, and even Lenten services, so we had some pretty jazzy Lenten services. Okay. There's some things I could leave out here, couldn't I? Look at those things up there. We have big long banners, and a couple of them still hang in your entranceway. And we would have big banners up there. And then at Easter time, the butterflies on the banners, the butterflies would go up the banners, and then of course butterflies fly all over. And pretty soon you'd have butterflies up in those rafters up in there, way up in there. There'd be butterflies and little butterflies. And how did they get there? Pastor Russ, how did they get there? It was a big, long time. I was standing on the last two rungs of the ladder, putting on butterflies at 11 o'clock on Easter Eve for a 4 o'clock service and 7 o'clock. And but anyway, banners all over and so on. I want to go really fast. I want to tell you these things. Vacation Bible School. We had big rally days and Vacation Bible Schools. I've been up in your bell tower as high as you can go, coming out that little pool, and I'm out there. I'm hanging a banner all across there that's made out of red wrappers and so on. And then you remember the hula hoops. We had the Olympic Vacation Bible School. We had hula hoops that we put together and pounded in the ground. They were out there for a couple of weeks. And women's Easter and Christmas programs were big. My wife had endless paintings of centuries of painting for Holy Week and Christmas, and we made that a program. And Paulette Douch would be our token Catholic, who would sing for us there at those times. And one of the last things that happened here last Christmas, I was here. We had a live Christmas scene inside the church. When you come in those double doors, we had sheep, we had a donkey, we had chickens, we had different things. And the donkey didn't want to come up. The donkey didn't want to come up those steps very well. But we about 3 or 4 or 5 men finally got the donkey up. And then we had just put on the elevators, those brand new fresh rugs, and we're rushing up and get done in time. And here comes, I think Richard honestly, but somebody with 2 sheep, big sheep and little sheep following, coming up, and oh my goodness, the rug. And anyway, we got sheep in there, and live baby, and live mom and dad. I wonder if it was the Hoylets, I'm not sure. Maybe, okay, and so, one very funny story. I think it's funny, and I will to my grave remember. I was ready to preach right there. I needed that day a screen. Remember when we pull up the pole and then the screen go up and look on the pole? And I had to have that for my preaching. I just here from Washington, and I pull up the pole, and there's nothing there. There's no hook. It's just straight. And so I look at my watch. It's about 5 minutes before church. Our students playing the prelude, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I remember. Boom! I went went there, down through the door, into my garage, and all the way I was going, I had no idea what I was going to do, but I knew I had to do something. So I went into my garage, and sure enough, here was one of those nozzles you put on the end of your garden hose, and so the hole where the water goes, that went on the hose, and then the nozzle stuck out there like that. And church started on time. Barbara was not done with the pedal yet. And wait a minute. It was a wonderful sermon. And then we had the Norwegian service, and Gladys Godog had me one of those fighting collars, and somebody know the name of them. And we planted that tree out there, a great biggest tree out in front of it. And I came home and I said, well, the friends who planted it and so on. I looked out, I can remember looking out my parson's window and seeing it was crooked. But I never got around to going out there and straightening it. So all looked out, but it is crooked. And my last little story today, the Norwegian service, we had a service like this, where it's basically all music, because there's so much music that's come from this church and from Helen Austin. It was music after music that was really great. And the last story goes this way. I was in Cavalier. I went to my last church was in Cavalier. We had a tornado. So we being the nice people we are, we raised some money and we brought it up here. So we didn't have a pastor that Sunday. I led the service, and the kids from Gacko participated in the service. And my serviceman at that day, I can remember, was a great big beach ball and a marble. And I'm having the kids go back and back and back. How far do you think the earth, the marble of the earth, how far do you think you have to go to get away from the sun? And out through that window and down, almost down to the hospital down, and so on. And so on, so on. So then I talked to Wade, and I'm going to say Wade, Bill gave me a compliment. And I started to stop with this compliment that Wade gave me. He said, I went into his pharmacy later, and he said, well, he brought up the service. He says, well, when I saw that beach ball come out, I knew Pastor Russ was back. Thank you, Wade.
I think that's the longest, fastest story you've ever told. We'll have a work music now by Mary Ellen. I'll have your brother will have to fill us in on your family on these concepts. Pastor Saudi asked his father what's Daryl going to be when he's done. And Pastor Saudi didn't miss a beat. He said, old.
The prediction turned out correct. I'm old. My name is Daryl Salaka, as you've already gathered from me. He surprised me half an hour or so asking me to say a few words. So I'm happy to do that. And my main point to make is I want to say a big thank you to this congregation, to many, of course, of people who were important in my life are not with us anymore. but it was a nurturing place for me that was really important. Sunday school teachers, for example, one in particular I remember was Chet Hagan, who that year was assigned that boys in 8th grade, and he put the girls in 8th grade in a different class, which probably when you were in 8th grade is not a bad idea. And what he did was to teach us to usher. So all of the boys had a role to play in the service, which when you're in 8th grade is a pretty important thing. The pastors that were here when I was in school was Pastor Roll, and then when I went off to college, had Israel Cave. And they were both people who had conversations with me and were formative in terms of forming and shaping my understanding of Christianity, particularly in confirmation classes with Arthur Roll. I was active in the Lutheran League and had the chance to go to a Lutheran League leadership camp. And when I came back and gave a report, a member of this congregation came up to me and said, "Daryl, have you ever thought about being a pastor?" That was the first call that I had. I'd never thought about it before. And after that question, I thought about it a lot. In 1973, I was ordained in the congregation, and Pastor Roll was very happy to be asked to participate and to do the ordination because he never officiated it once before, and he by that time retired, and it was the last opportunity he had to be participant in an ordination. As Wade indicated, I kept going to school a long time. And what happened as a result is that I spent most of my time teaching. So in addition to being in parish for a couple of years in Washington, D.C., I've served for 7 years teaching at Luther Seminary, 21 years teaching at Muhlenberg College of NELC School in Pennsylvania, 13 years at St. Adolphus College in St. Peter, Minnesota, and then my first failure of retirement, another 2.5 years at St. Olaf College. I continued to fail retirement by serving on the NELC committees and serving, representing the NELC at the National Council of Churches and representing the NELC at the ongoing dialogue between the National Council of Churches and the National Council of Synagogues. So it's been a splendid opportunity to have places to serve and things to do that have been meaningful in my life. So thank you to this congregation for setting me on the pathway that led to all of those ways of serving in ministry. Thank you all very much.
Our next speaker is another local boy, man, Reverend Elton Gordy. He's got some explaining to do because I understand the day after he graduated from seminary, he left the country.
Do you have a watch on? Okay. Start going like this when it's 5 minutes, okay? Anyway, I'm so happy to be here because this is a joyful celebration today, and the last 2 times I've been in this church have been funerals, so it is so nice to celebrate with you guys today. And my mother, Eileen Jordy, loved this church so much, and I'm sure some of you remember her. And so that was the one funeral I went to, and then the next one was just last year. My brother Glenn passed away, and he wanted his funeral to be in his hometown church, so that was his wish, and the church granted that wish for him. So thank you so much for the grace and kindness that's been shown to me and my family over the years. And I was ordained in this church in 1987, and also my wife Karen and I on that same Sunday were commissioned as missionaries to go to Madagascar. So 2 things happened on that Sunday, that Pentecost Sunday back in 1987. So I have so many good memories of this church, of the people, and my mom told me when this was later anyway, that I suppose I was 4 or 5 years old when they start Sunday school here, since 4 and 5 year olds. Anyway, my Sunday school teacher was Doris Thompson, and she was very kind and gave every student lots of attention, and I went to Sunday school one Sunday and she wasn't there. It was a substitute. And then when you're 4 years old, where is she, Where's that nice lady? So my mom told me that when I was 4 years old, I did not want to go back to Sunday school because Doris Thompson was not there. And she said, well, she'd probably be here this Sunday. And obviously I did go back. So also, when I was confirmed, I was confirmed by Victor Saudi, and in class of 74. So we'll have our 50th reunion this summer. So this is a big year. I'll be back here in a month. And anyway, Pastor Saudi, years later, we were at some pastor's meeting or something, and he said to me something like, well, when I taught you confirmation, I would have never guessed that you would be a pastor. And I said, me too. God works in mysterious ways. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Vicki Saudi Worthington. There were so many stories on her, I couldn't have it down.
Good afternoon. It is so nice to be here, and on behalf of my mom, Gladys Saudi, and my dad, who would have been 100 on June 6th, and in September it will be his 6th anniversary of his death. My mom, who I had hoped could be here tomorrow, is just in a stage of her life now where she is really, really tired. And she said, Vicki, I feel bad, but I just can't travel anymore. But she said, please tell my friends hello. My mom and dad loved this place, this town, this community so much that when my dad finally retired after 4 attempts, they were coming back to Northwood. They knew that. So anyway, I think he came in '66. I was in 8th grade, so I spent that 8th grade year and all of high school in Northwood, and my dad and I were like super glued together. I followed him everywhere. We always had that bond, and so I would follow him all over the church. I knew this place inside and out. And he was the one that I would watch constantly. He loved kids. And I know people do not like confirmation as a regular rule. I loved it. I loved it because my dad was teaching it. He was so good at it. And he loved us. And that was a big thing. We learned so much. And then when I took my turn at being a high school organist for this place, I got to work with him, alongside of him, and that was really cool too. He was a real supporter of music, and that was my field, and that was a great thing. This place is just infused with music. Their history is strong with that. In fact, the whole community is. My dad loved stewardship. That was his big thing. He wanted people to understand that when we give of our time and our talent and our financial gifts, it is more than just this place. It goes into all corners of the world. And hunger was especially his big thing. So whenever he could encourage people to give to the ELCA Hunger Appeal, that was a big thing. He was one of the most compassionate people I've ever met. I know that he welled up many a tear during a funeral service and tried to hold it together. I remember going with him on communion calls to homes, and we would share communion and sing together. Quite frankly, I've never known anyone who loved ministry more. So when I was called into ministry myself, for year upon year, decade upon decade, I said, thank you, God, no. And the chief reason was I will never be like my dad. So don't even try to convince me, because I don't, well, that worked out. I remember Dad saying, that's okay. You be who you are. You. And he has done that and encouraged people so through the years. He's had confirmation students 25 years apologizing to him for being rascals in class. And I have to tell you a story now that I hope doesn't offend you, but it is one of the stories I remember. Well, 2 of them. One was the altar used to be pulled out, I think. I mean, it wasn't, I think it was, and we had an altar offering. I'm sure we had way back in the early years, and I was playing for it, and I thought, you know, there's a way to speed this up. So I was a rascal organist who played hymns so fast, I would just watch these people go up to get to put their offering up on the altar and come back down. But I remember when Dad was in the pulpit, he was preaching and he was bending on that pulpit, and he'd go point 1 and bend his finger back. And then he made the mistake of bending back his middle finger. And we as confirmation students were in the front, and my brother Lon was absolutely mortified. And then he went to his 3rd point. After service, my brother went to the office where Dad was, and he said, Dad, you can't do that. Mm-mm. You can't do that. What did I do? Well, I had to explain. But that was Dad too. He was the practical jokester, and he was the one that he absolutely loved everything about ministry, and so did my mom. That's why they retired here. That's why my dad and mom were buried here. And that's the long and short of it. He didn't just love ministry. He loved you. I wish he was here, but I know he is. So, my mom said at his funeral, well, before the funeral, I hope your dad is resting now. I said, are you kidding me? He's working.
Probably our youngest pastor we ever had, Reverend Bud.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
I'm actually here now. Oops.
Trying to speed it up.
Okay. Well, I can do that. I can do that. Okay, these are two hymns that were used at my ordination that happened back in 1998 in May here at this church. And I'm known for taking hymns and just kind of reprising or rewrapping them or whatever. So here we go. Want to sing along if you can. I probably should go to a different key. On the everlasting line.
confirmed by John. He said, well, Dad, he's actually kind of nerdy. That's a compliment.
First off, it is just a joy to be back here with you all. It's a little strange too. Much has changed, but much is still the same. And there's something beautiful about that reality. And as I've been thinking about what I might share here today, I think I've been coming back around to that kind of idea, that idea of familiarity and yet growth. I'm John Nelson. I was pastor here. It was my first call, 2008 to 2013. And then I went to Wilmer, Minnesota for 8 years, and I'm currently serving in Williamsburg, Virginia. So we might win the furthest distance travel. I'm not sure about that. Maybe not. But as I've gone out into my years after my time here in Northwood, I have been very consistent in saying this parish was such a blessing to me. It was such a blessing, especially as a first call pastor. The people here, your warmth, your patience, your graciousness when I made mistakes, your practicality, your pragmatism, your willingness to just kind of jump in and get things done. I arrived here about a year after the tornado. We were sharing our sanctuary space with Ebenezer Lutheran. We had a whole bunch of stuff in the back there from your sound equipment. And it was just, of course, that's what we're going to do, right? Your church building is destroyed, we'll share space. And that was my first year here. We shared space with Ebenezer Lutheran. Warmth, familiarity, growth at the same time, graciousness, kindness. I learned so much here. I can think back to Deaconess Health Center and some deathbeds that I was at that nursing home, at that hospital. I can think of an outdoor wedding where I was drenched in sweat because that's just how things were. I just got lucky being a guy in the sun. I can imagine and think back to confirmation trips, to taking 2 vans worth of youth to Chicago for over a week, where we did service work, we helped out at a women's shelter, we fed people at a soup kitchen. We did some fun stuff too. We went to Navy Pier and had such a wonderful time together. Boundary Waters trips with groups from this congregation. Choir singing, caroling. I remember caroling. As I think back and reflect on my time here, warmth, familiarity, and yet not stasis, growth, a willingness to try new things, a willingness to be open to where the Spirit might be leading you. I'm sorry to say, that can be kind of unique in the church. Keep it up. Keep up your willingness to try new things. I looked over my annual reports that I wrote during my time here. I looked at all the stuff we did, the Christmas programs, the vacation Bible schools. This is a busy, happening place that wants to be engaged in ministry, wants to be welcome, and warm, and hospitable. And yet, you're still willing to try new things. Towards the end of my time here, I changed the words of the dismissal. I don't know, you probably don't, but 11 years ago I was doing one. Rather than go in peace, serve the Lord, or any of those, I started saying, go in peace, live by your faith. My last article I wrote here, those are the words I left you with. Go in peace, live by your faith. I know you have. I know you will continue to. And it is so beautiful to me that you all are here. Warm, willing, inviting, living by your faith. You have been, are still, and will continue to be a blessing to me and a major factor in the pastor I've become. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you.
Now a special duet by Janet Hilton and Mary Ann on the organ. Next speaker is part of a dying breed, very special. It's a Mrs. Torvaldson. The breed is the Lutheran Church Basement Women.
Ja, hallo, nice to be here.
Yeah. I've always wanted to know Mrs. Torvaldson. What is the difference between a casserole and a hot dish?
Well, I have to say, casserole is like a dish that you bring to the potluck. But the hot dish, well, that's what my husband calls me.
The other question I had, I've heard of different food groups, and I've heard there's 4 food groups in the church basement.
Then I have to say it's the coffee, the NELC, yellow, and the Lutherist.
Well done. And the other question, why is yellow different colors?
Right. That's the 4 liturgical colors.
Oh, sure. And what happens to be your favorite spice?
Oh, that would be butter.
Now you have experience in this what it's like to be Lutheran. Did you take some notes on that? Could you read us some of those comments?
That, yeah, you might be a Lutheran if, the midlife crisis is when you switch from the red hymnal to the green hymnal. That was very stressful. And sometimes you might forget to put water in the baptismal font, but you never forget to put water in the coffee pot. No, that is for sure. And I don't know what everybody thinks is so funny about that movie Fargo. What is so funny about Fargo, that movie? I don't get it. And people who put peas in their noodle hot dish, that adds too much color, I think. Because we are known for our white foods here, the potluck has all the white foods. But I always got snowblind because I walked in and it was white everywhere. And all the women know how to make a funeral hot dish. It's a funeral hot dish. That's just what it is. We don't have to explain that. It's a funeral hot dish. We think, sometimes if that pastor goes and gets a new car after he's only been here for 8 years, we're paying him way too much. When you back at the church when you're ready to go home, then we say goodbye, but it takes 10 minutes to finally leave. Because you keep talking and talking. Hard to say goodbye. And if you're in a movie theater and you're watching Star Wars and they say, may the force be with you, then some of us say, and also with you. My mother often reminded me that she wished I had studied the Army. That was her greatest wish, but I was okay with that. Sometimes if you have those ELCA brides marrying the LCMS grooms, that's what we call a mixed marriage. Not me so good, that's so good, and we always make our hot dishes with cream of mushroom soup, and salads have to have yellow. They have to have it. And even if it's 110 degrees in the church, we still have coffee afterwards. That's a rule. And all of our things we bring to church, the casserole dishes, they all have our names on them, right? We want to get them back. And we sit in the same pews every Sunday. They don't have our names on them, but we know where they are. I heard a story, and I wasn't here then, but somebody told me this story. I don't know if it's true or not, but one time the ladies made rumagoods. Big batch of rumagood for the nursing home. So they took all this rumagood over there, and they got there. They realized they used salt instead of sugar. I think that's true. But they had to bring it back and throw it away. What a waste that was. Oh, family. I can't imagine that. I don't know how they would trust us after that. How could we throw our face in public after that? Oh.
I'm not talking Mrs. Portable.
Okay.
We will now sing hymn 271. I am so glad of these girls. Let's see. Pardon me? 2 verses. Pardon me? What do you say? In Norwegian, the first one. First 2. Next up is Julie Anderson.
Good morning, good afternoon, that's right. We're used to saying good morning up here, right? I had to count back. I was here, I was an interim. I was a late interim in, I believe, August of 2002 till July about 2003. I was only here a year. But I've been to Northwood many times because there's some family and friends here, so I was aware of where Northwood was at. I'm trying to remember, did I teach you guys how to do intinction? Yes, at that funeral. And that was one of my fondest memories. I still, people go, intinction, what's that? I said, well, that's where you just dip the wafer in the wine. And someone brought some beautiful, they were perfect cups. And it was a large funeral. I think it was a young person, and it was just hilarious because it was like people with suits and people with tattoos. But they all came forward. Everybody came forward for communion. And, there was about 300 people here. And it gets a little boring serving communion to that many people. And it was the first time you got invitation. So some people were so very careful, they would just barely touch the wine. Others went all the way to the bottom. So it got to be, as people came up, I'm thinking, dipper or dunker? So that was my fun for the day. And to this day, when I do a teaching with people, I'm like, dipper or dunker? Be very careful. One of the things, you have your vicar here, and I think whether you know it or not, when I was here, I was in the process of going to seminary also. I was one of the trailblazers for the distributed learning system. And I was doing a preaching class. And every once in a while we'd have to record my sermon, and then I'd get it critiqued afterwards. That was always kind of fun. That was a great, so you were part of this learning process. You were innovators before you even knew it. And I believe Deb was new too when I came here. And one day we'd been told about these closets. And I've discovered there's two ways to learn about a congregation. One is you go to the cemetery and you can find out how everybody's related. You want to find out the church history, go to those closets up in the bell towers there. Deb and I kind of cleaned them out, and we sorted. We designated, one was Christmas, one was Easter. But boy, we found some very interesting stuff, and we almost accidentally threw away a few interesting things. But that happened. But it was fun to kind of look back what Lenten dinners were and Lenten services, and like any other church, you never threw anything away, just in case we want to use it again, right? And I think I had the perfect interim here because at the end of my interim, right before I finished, the new pastor came, Luther came, and so we had about a month to kind of hand off things, and I was able to kind of officially hand him off to you. And I remember things like having the fun little competition, the apple pies at Washington in the fall versus the Lefsa in the spring here at NELC. And how many rounds were made. I remember the smell. I remember skating down in the fellowship hall because of all the caramelized flour that was on the floor, but it was always great. And yes, the pies and lefts, and probably one of the most the things I most remember here is I believe it was the Easter sunrise service, and the youth would reenact the Easter story. And I forget who it was. I think it was some of my confirmation kids, and one I believe was Matt, who was very, very tall, and he was playing Jesus. And there was another classmate or high school kid of his who was a little bit shorter, but he was a wrestler. And the soldier had to carry Jesus off the cross, and he said, I'm too big. He said, don't worry, I can handle him. And boy, he threw Jesus over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes, and away he went. But they had such ownership of that. And as you heard through many of the other speakers, that ownership, that tradition that gets handed on to each generation is so great because that's how we hand on the faith. So well done, good and faithful servants.
Chris Holland.
It's nice in the choir large enough, you have to really kind of maneuver just to get around here. My name is David Astrup, and I am the eldest of 5 children born to Ed and Beatrice Astrup. We came here in the summer of 1958, and Dad served here till the summer of 1966. These were formative years for us as siblings in the family. There are 5 of us. As I said, I'm the oldest. Margaret, Mary Ann, who just played the organ today. And then there is Rachel, who lives between Fergus and Massey, married to a farmer. And then there is Margaret, who lives out in Connecticut with her husband Max. And then the last one was born here in Northwood, and he's a pastor in Litchfield, Minnesota. He was born 6 days after I graduated from high school. I've often said that I had a little trouble handling that as a senior in high school when my mother was 44 years old when she gave birth. But he's been a real blessing to the family. Just a couple of remembrances. Seeing Daryl Dodock sitting over there. I do remember coming down the steps on Sunday afternoon on occasion and hearing this discussion in the living room between Daryl, who was a student at St. Olin College, and my dad. I think it was a discussion. Sometimes I might have thought it was more like a debate, but in any event, I know my father enjoyed those conversations with Daryl very much. I also remember, again, I was in high school at the time, Pastor Young, who was the chaplain at the nursing home. Interestingly enough, he was older than most of the residents in the nursing home. And I think the city kind of gave him a little bit of privilege to drive around town. I'm not sure he had a license, but he used to park right over here in the parking lot of the parsonage. And I remember the Sunday he just about took me out with that car from parking. But again, and I've got to tell this story because I remember my dad told it. I'm not sure it was directly at the time it occurred. But Pastor Young's wife was president of WCTU when we came into town. And he was in his office kind of settling in, putting books on his shelf. And Mrs. Young came to see him. And she made it clear that they served grape juice here at this church rather than wine. And it was pretty obvious the way that she put that forward, that Dad took it pretty seriously. And to my knowledge, they always served grape juice here at that time. I remember too that the pastor's kids in town here used to have, we were involved in the Christmas service, the chapel at the nursing home. And I think I was the age where I participated with a bit of reluctance, but I did participate. And again, the chapel was full when we had that service. Anyway, good memories. I should mention too, my youngest brother is pastor, as I said, in Litchfield. I also have a nephew who was Rachel and Hans's son, who was serving as a professor at the Martin Luther Seminary in Papua New Guinea. And just started that position. And I know that it's been a real change in terms of a lot of things, including just the environment that he's living in with his family. Again, our blessings to you as a congregation as you hopefully work on another 150 years. Thank you.
I'm Chris Hollander. We were here from 1987 to 1996. '86, my first word that I heard about Northwood was, my wife called me to the phone and said, there's this nice man on the phone from Northwood that wants to talk to you. Well, Richard Groban became a good friend. And I came here, and Martin Luther says that one of the many gifts that the Holy Spirit gives to the church is called the consolation of the brethren. In other words, everything that we've been talking about that Northwood did for you, that NELC did for you, that support, that comfort, that is what we experienced here. Because I made what I thought was the Holy Spirit's decision to come here with an 8th grader, a 6th grader, and a 3rd grader. So one of the things I'm grateful for is how you brought them into the community, into the church, and it became a home. So much so that this is the longest place I ever was a pastor. All our kids went through high school here. We had a wedding here. My mother moved up with us, and she lived her last 2 years, and we moved north of Deaconess Health Center, and died here. And so I have many close feelings about you people, so much so that I should warn you about how much consolation the brethren provide, because pastors retired here. We live 7 miles south of town, and this is our home congregation. I wanted to speak about a couple of people. Helen Austinson did something I'd never heard of before. She became an 8th grade at that time, was a girl, and trained her to be a church organist. Was that what happened to you, Vicki? And all through high school, we had a local organist. And then that person would graduate, there'd be another one in the pipeline, thanks to Helen. The other one, when I came, Charlene Rhonda said, the best youth worker I ever had. And we had wonderful trips. And I got all the credit, and she did all the work. She organized our pro and canoe trips that are around the 4th of July every year. And I have to tell you this story, it's my favorite. We'd come back 3 days on the river and so super tired, and we were eating supper, and this phone call came. And it was a mom saying, I'm going to put on my child because of how this person told about you on the canoe trip. And the story I don't remember, but this person was so tired that I was known as Craster Kiss. Gratefully, that mom and dad never once referred to me as Craster Kiss. But for all the halos I had, I tell you, that was the one I liked, one of the best. Dan taught 20 years here. Obviously, we came to love you people who supported us so well. Thank you, and continue to do what you have done so well.
Organists are much more comfortable sitting over there than being behind a microphone. But I had to share something with you. NELC has been such a wonderful launching place for organists. And I started making a list, and I miss people I know. But these are all kids from high school. I think the first was Margie. Marcia's Cheddar's sister, Marianne Acer, Rachel Acer, me, Vicki Selby, Monica Chipchey, Sue Grizzle, one of the Peterson girls, it was either Rachel or Ruth, maybe both, Nancy Skoll, Julie Tookie, Donna Ruby, a And wow, you talk about how important it is for mission, and that certainly is. Two factors lend itself to this. Three, actually. I think one is Helen Hoskinson. Absolutely. I think, thank you, Chris, for mentioning her name, because we all took from her, I think. Second, you invested in a good instrument. It's, churches that have a beeper, that's what they call hymns, beepers. They don't produce organists. It's no fun to play an instrument like that. It's a nice instrument and wonderful thing. And then second, your own patience and tolerance for having this revolving group. And I have to tell you a quick story. It's when I played when Pastor Sully was here in the Lenten services, and he got a film series. It's Wednesday night. They turned the lights off. I'm sitting over there, they put the film on, and the last thing I remembered was like an atomic bomb. And the next day, the lights came on, and thank goodness I woke up. I've never told this before, and it would have been a deep secret, but I went to school the next day, and Dennis Overby in physics said, "So what do you think of the film?" I have a quick little piece to play for you, and it shows up some of the nice colors in this organ, I think. It's based on a hymn that is sung for Easter, funerals, weddings, and in general called Hyperdoll is the tune name. And if you want to look at the words, probably the most logical one to look at would be hymn number 631, Love Divine, All Love's Excelling. And this organist who wrote it, he's a Minneapolis musician, Mark Cedillo, who used to play Everything. And he kind of hides the melody in there, so as you listen, you kind of look for that. Listen.
treated by so many people. We have a lot of memories of this place. And I really read from literally every member of my family. All three of my children who live in disparate places all called individually to ask me to say hi on their behalf. My wife wanted to be here very badly, but could not because she just started a new job and took 10 days off, believe it or not, to go be with our daughter when she had a baby. So she felt that was important. We have 3 children, as you remember. When we came here, our youngest daughter was 6, coming on 7. And now we have 5 grandchildren, the oldest between us 7. So time has passed, but we have such fond memories of this place. And as others have said before me, this is a place that was formative for us. This was a place that we came to from a kind of different context. You will remember that we were missionaries, and we had been serving in Thailand, and before that in Cameroon. And when we came here, we literally had nothing. The very first memory I had of this place, actually it was before we came to this place. When we were coming back, we knew that we were going to stay with friends of ours in Fargo because we had nowhere else to go. And so one day I was in a shop, in a store in Bangkok, and I saw this movie, Fargo. And I have been terrified of wood chippers ever since. And I wondered, what kind of place were we coming to? And so the friend of ours said to us, you know, instead of moping, because I guess I was kind of moping at the time, she said, why don't you get to meet our bishop? It was Rick Foss, who was bishop at the time. And I went to meet him, and he had me set up with call committees literally in a week. I had 4 letters of call in my hand at the same time, which they don't even do anymore. And I have to tell you, I don't know that I've ever told you this, but do you know that it was my children who chose not to? Do you know why? No. It was a laundry chute. They thought that the laundry chute of the Carson was so cool. And the boys always threatened to throw Maria down the laundry chute. So many things that happened for our family here happened for the first time. I remember the first day that it was cold outside. Our children had never seen snow. They'd never seen cold. And watching them walk down the street, cross the street, and walk down the street, looking at their breath as they walked to school, because for the first time they could see their breath. And one day, not too terribly long after that, a few months as school was going on, Maria was by herself. She was 6. Very independent, but she was still 6. And she went off to school by herself, and there had been a terrible snowstorm that day, and she didn't come home. Mama was worried. She was very worried. Yes, it's north of it, but still, she was 6. So she went to find her, and as she was walking towards the school, she could see her jacket. It was a pink-colored parka, and little arms sticking above the snow. She got stuck in the snowdrift. Other memories that we have from this place are memories that are born wonderful for you. The first memory I had, of course, was Overby. I don't know if you know this or not, but Mr. Overby abducted me from a city assembly in Grand Forks. He heard that there was pastors up there looking for places to go, and he said, come with me. Mr. Gelton, who worked with John so very often, and really in some measure informed who he is to this day, doing mechanical, physical sorts of things. He changes roofs by himself. He builds buildings by himself. And I attribute that primarily to him. Opportunities that we had to go fishing with Mr. Nelson on his boat. Several things about this place surprised us when we got here. But one was, after we lived in a city like Bangkok with 13 million people coming to a place that had just shy of 1,000, it was a bit different. And one of the things that really shocked us when we got here is how many Olsons and Nelsons and Andersons and Johnsons there were. And the very special language that we speak. my short words that I use to this day, like Ufa. We enjoyed getting to know the palette of the Norwegian community and how that was celebrated in September and so many other things. This place was a profound blessing to our family. To this day, our middle son Elias attributes he's kind of a talented person. He did a degree in music composition at Whitworth University and actually has IMDb credits. And he attributes his success to Mrs. Durant, who was his first piano teacher. So we are, as a family, so very grateful to this place, to this congregation. And it is this place that we in Southern consider to be home. So we thank you for the blessing of having been here from the time that we were. It was a short time, but a profoundly blessing-filled time for us. And there is a sense in which we shall always consider this to be home. So thank you so much, and happy anniversary.
Our final song, 881. 881.
Pastors and organists up there afterwards, make pictures? Okay, did we get that? Oh, okay, good. Thanks. Thanks everyone for being here. Thank you everyone for sharing today. I know people came from a long way to be here. I know a lot of work went into this service, and I know a lot of work went into the cookies and refreshments we'll have afterwards downstairs. So we invite you down there afterwards as well. And we thank the Lord that I believe it was the Washington women down there getting things ready today. So I appreciate you very much for being here to be part of this today as well. I just want to say a couple of things before we go. I have been here probably much shorter than I think anybody, probably in this room actually. About a year ago, well, more than a year ago, February last year, I got word that as a seminary student, as someone who's going into work in sacrament ministry, it might be a good idea for me to put your name on the pulpit supply list for the city, because there's so many churches out there looking for people to come and lead services and lead worship for them on Sundays. And I was the youth director at Sheridan Lutheran at the time, and it was my pleasure to put that name on there. And the first place that got a hold of me was Northwood, Washington Parish, and I didn't know what to expect. I came out and I fumbled through my first services. But the thing is, even though I fumbled through those services, everybody had a smile on their face, everybody was happy to see me, and everybody was happy to have me here. And when I went home after that first Sunday, and I went to Pastor Karen, who was my supervising pastor afterwards, I said to her, Karen, they want me for more Sundays. And she's like, how many more? And I said, I don't know. As many as they can get me. And she said, well, maybe once or twice a month. So I came back another Sunday and went back again. And Easter was coming up, and we didn't have anyone for Easter. And I said, Karen, I'm going to sign up for more Sundays, and they need someone for Easter Sunday. And she said, well, we need you to do Easter Sunday. And I said, Northwood Washington needs more. And I came out here and I led my first Easter services. And it just went from there. In the fall, the bishop kind of suggested, she was like, hey, we got a place for internship picked out for you. We can't tell you that. But I had a feeling it was here. And in November, they confirmed that. I came in the beginning of December. I left Sheridan Lutheran after probably 7 to 10 years of service there, volunteering and part of the staff. And that was hard. But the nice thing is, I had a place ready for me that was ready to welcome me, and that I already knew. And that's one of the great gifts of coming out here just to dabble in ministry a little bit. And now I'm an intern here, and I was not intimidated when I came here because everybody was ready for me, and everybody was so happy to have me a part of the congregation. You all have welcomed me and my family. Who's not here today? My wife is taking my daughter out to camp this weekend, so they're not here. But they send their regards as well, because you've done nothing but welcome us, you've done nothing but be kind to us. And the greatest gift you've given me is that when I'm ordained next year, and I finish school, I've had experience in the parish. I know what I'm kind of in for. You never know what you're always in for, but I have a little bit of an idea of what I'm in for. And I'm so excited because this parish, the Northwood Washington Parish, and NELC, Washington Lutheran, have done so much to get me ready for my future call. So thank you so much. I'm going to read just one little quick quote that I love, because it defines ministry really well. I'm a giant nerd, if anybody doesn't know that. I've got Pauline Rice on my shirt. I love Dungeons and Dragons, right? But I also love Lord of the Rings, and there's some real wisdom in Tolkien's writings. And one of the things he says, or writes, is when Frodo and Sam are leaving the Shire to head out on their adventure, and they don't know what to expect. And he just says it's a dangerous business, Frodo, going out your door. You step out onto the road, and if you don't keep your feet, there's no knowing where you're going to be swept off to. I have no idea what the Holy Spirit has in store for me in the future, this church or anybody here, but I know that's something that is in store for all of us. So I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to having coffee and cookies afterwards. Thank you. You are dismissed.
Amen.